Overlord of the Balemurk is a card from Duskmourn that seemed pretty solid on paper for certain decks, especially those that like mill, but it was around $8 on release, and I think that was about where people expected it to stay. Now, a few weeks later, it's almost $30, and there are some crazy combos making it happen, so let's get into the video and talk about it. Alright, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys taking the time to watch these videos. Be sure to hit that like button if you enjoy, and click the subscribe button if you're not subscribed to the channel. Click that bell icon to be notified when new videos are posted. Of course, a lot of people who do watch my videos are not subscribed, so if even a few of you took the time to subscribe, it would be hugely helpful to the channel. Either way, though, I do appreciate you being here. And the topic of today's video is going to be Overlord of the Balemurk. I was actually working on a deck profile for next week's weekly Tuesday Commander decks, and I happened to notice that this was showing on Scryfall and EDH Rec at like $25. So it's like, that's got to be some kind of an error, or it's pulling in like some wrong price. And then I did a little bit of digging, and I'm like, no, this card actually has seen a massive spike in price. And when it came out, it was around, $8 to $9. I think it's really good. I'm playing it in a couple of different Commander decks, but I kind of figured that its usefulness would be limited to Commander and then maybe Standard in some of the Reanimator decks, but I was very wrong, and we're going to talk about why in today's video. This card has seen a big price spike. Right now, there are around, the cheapest about 23, but it got as high as 25, with even a few sales around $32 for just the regular version. And that's not, considering the fact that we also have some other variants of this fella here, including the absolutely beautiful Japan Showcase version, which is around $45 at the cheapest right now. Honestly speaking, I'm not saying go out and buy it, but honestly speaking, that feels like a crazy value just when you consider how cool the artwork is on this and how hard these are to actually get. But I digress. I just wanted to kind of, point out the variants of versions, but the cheapest one, we'll call it around $25 after tax. And obviously there is the extended art version, which is probably around $21, $22. But again, you see the graph kind of going in the same direction. Some sold as high as $32, $33. So why is this happening? We're going to talk about it. And I think I just want to give some credit to MTG Rocks, who actually had a great article kind of breaking this down, talking about the price spike, because as I was trying to research what was going on, this was kind of where I found a lot of things. So I just wanted to, shout them out, check out the website, a lot of really useful articles and coverage and stuff like that for these types of things. What is causing this card to go as high as it is primarily Pioneer. Now, it is playable in other formats, of course. It is good in Commander. I play it in the Myco Tyrant deck. There are definitely some other decks. Anything that wants to mill and recur is definitely going to be able to make use of this, as well as enchantment decks. There are cards that do the thing of bringing back a creature from the graveyard a lot cheaper, but in conjunction with what this card has going for it, its flexibility to cast it as an enchantment, it's, every turn you can use the effect once it's able to attack as a creature, as well as the milling is kind of what adds up to make it solid. Greasefang Okiba Boss, if you are familiar with the Pioneer format, is a very popular deck and a really good card. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So, of course, there's ways to fill the graveyard pretty quickly with vehicles using Balemurk, and then Greasefang can bring them out. And with his enchantment Impending Cast, he only costs 2 mana, so you can see how you can kind of set up for Greasefang very quickly, as early as turn 3, realistically, with that card. So it's definitely a card that is seeing some play there. But I was absolutely shocked when I was reading about this, because the combo that specifically broke this card, or not broke, but has made a massive impact here, has to do with Kroxa and Kunaros. I forgot this card existed. I'm not super well versed in the Pioneer format. Like, I'm familiar with some of the good decks, and I've played the format a bit. I'm definitely more in line with that format than I am with, say, Vintage or Legacy. But this card is from March of the Machine. It is 3 red, white, black, legendary creature, Elder Giant Dog with Vigilant, Menace, and Lifelink. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you exile 5 cards from your graveyard. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's not incredible on its own, because it is a little costly, but it does obviously have a lot of different keywords, and for a 6/6, if you're playing a deck that can fill the graveyard up relatively quickly, there are obviously ways that this card can be strong. But what we're seeing here is a combination of Kroxa and Kunaros in conjunction with this card called Enigmatic Incarnation. Now, this card I have never heard of before. It's from Theros Beyond Death. It is 2 green-blue enchantment. It says, at the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice another enchantment. If you do, search your library for a creature with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrificed enchantment's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So if you're a little bit confused, allow me to explain. Overlord of the Balemurk is a 5-mana creature, however, it has impending, so when you cast it for its impending cost, it comes out as an enchantment, and it only costs 2 mana to play. So you play it as an enchantment, you put the time counters on it, you mill your stuff, you get something back, and then you proceed to the end phase, where you then sacrifice it with Enigmatic Incarnation. Because it's no longer on the field, and it's checking the card's mana value, we're actually getting a total mana value of 5 instead of 2. Meaning you can bring a 6-mana creature out from the deck because it's 5 plus 1. So you play the Balemurk, you have Enigmatic Incarnation, and then you sacrifice the Balemurk and you bring Kroxa and Kunaros out directly from the deck. When Kroxa enters, you can then exile 5 cards to return the Balemurk from your grave to the battlefield, then milling more cards and recurring another card from grave, and you're set up to do this combo on the next turn too, because it's whenever it enters or attacks. So you can basically have 11 damage on board while also having an incredibly consistent recursion engine just off of a couple of cards. Now that is absolutely what has caused this card's price to spike as much as it has. This is an example of the regional championship deck from, I think, this past weekend. And again, like I said, I am not super well versed in the actual, top decks of the format specifically. So this, to me, I can't give you full breakdown on the rationale on the why on some of this stuff. But as far as I can see, it looks like the idea is fill up the graveyard quickly. And the main deck appears to have 80 cards in it, which is, I think the minimum is 60. So they're definitely going heavy, knowing you're going to be milling stuff. And there are some one-ofs here that obviously combo well with bringing that back. But you'll see they're playing 3 copies of Balemurk and 4 copies of Enigmatic Incarnation. Obviously the key component here. And there are a lot of other creatures that cost 6 that I'm guessing the objective is to maybe bring those out with the Incarnation. If you already have Kroxa and Kunaros out, you can certainly bring out some other things like Sanctuary Warden here, Noxious Gear Hulk, different cards of that nature. The whole deck's design seems to be based around being able to kind of abuse that combo, and it's just such a cool thing because with these creatures, we have enchantment creatures, but I'm not familiar with too many creatures that have the flexibility that the Overlords do, where you're able to cast them as enchantments but then play around with those mana costs after. Certainly there are cards that bring things back as an enchantment, like Onyxia from Commander Masters, but that's also not a card that's legal in constructed formats except for like Vintage, Legacy, what have you. And it's actually crazy to see the things people come up with and how some cards that are more obscure perhaps prior to a new card coming out become significantly more powerful. And honestly, the other thing too is they're talking about this here in the article. There's been over 100 sales every couple of days, so the card is kind of flying off the shelves. It's actually outselling Overlord of the Hauntwoods, which is definitely a better, not better, but a really strong card, kind of the card everyone's looking at. Ramp, creates a land token. And this is just flying off the shelves. And they do mention the foil versions are actually a little bit cheaper in some cases. But something about risky for competitive play. I don't know if that has to do with pringling or noticeability in the deck or what have you. I think you're probably better off just grabbing what you like. If you're playing in, high level events, maybe you're better off going with a non-foil, or at least making sure what you have is a good condition, non-pringled version of the card, so you don't have to have any risks there. But this is just a really, really cool combo that certainly seems like it has some staying power. Obviously, topping in a Pro Tour is going to be something that'll cause that spike, and we saw it with the card looking at the chart where it went up and then dropped, quite a bit, just in terms of selling at 32, which I think was like the peak, falling back down a little, but it's certainly, I don't think, going to fall back down to where it was. And even if people start to game plan for this combo, maybe there'll be some other decks that can take advantage of this too, being able to, build around it with some level 6s, or I keep saying level 6s because my brain just automatically defaults to older games, my apologies, but mana cost 6 to sort of make decks that work kind of built around this and that enchantment. Who knows what might come out of it. So if you're like me and you were wondering why it went up so much, there's your kind of deep dive on what happened and what the combos are. It's also seen play in standard and reanimator decks, like I said, so that combined with the fact that it is a mythic, so it's not the easiest card to pull, especially when there's a lot of other mythics in the set that are pretty good and in demand. this card has been a pleasant surprise, and honestly, from a market perspective, it's nice to see Duskmourn doing well. A lot of the values of singles still kind of holding, things are going up. If you're opening product, you have some good return on value, and if you bought this when it was like 8 on release, you're probably pretty happy with the rise that you're seeing there. And yeah, I mean, it's up to you whether or not you think it's worth it to sell them or hold them. It's obviously not, this video is not really just about that, but from a market perspective and obviously the type of content that I do cover at times, I would say, it's more than likely going to fall back out a little bit at some point, unless it continues to be cracked open and people find other ways to make it work. But nonetheless, if I got any Pioneer people, let me know what you think of this card's staying power in the format. Clearly, it made an impact, and on paper, at the very least, you can see that combo is incredible. If it's able to work, just really good synergy there. I'm pretty excited to see what happens. I got a couple copies of this card. I'm playing it, so I'm actually really happy about that. I regret maybe not grabbing the Japanese showcase one when it was cheaper, just because I really, really liked the art, and I wanted that one, and now it's fucking doubled. But still, pretty cool card. Just wanted to talk about this one today. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.